Okay, I'm joined today not only by co-founder of Pod Bible magazine, Scroobius Pip, but also by our cover stars of our brand new magazine, issue 22 of Pod Bible. It is Mark Kermode and Simon Mayo. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having us on.
It's like being a pin-up.
Is it?
It is.
Yeah, I think we're pin-ups.
I've been a pin-up.
I've been a pin-up too, but not for a few years.
All right. Well, you'll have to see the approach that we've taken on the cover illustration shortly as to whether
I'm alarmed already.
Thank you very much for being here with us. We have been after you guys as cover stars for a long, long time. When we first started the magazine, we were keen to have you involved. Obviously, we put the feelers out there. It was a lot more difficult when there was a bit more red tape involved. And I just wondered, now that the red tape is no longer there, you've sort of spread your wings, you've cast off the shackles in a way. How are you finding it now that you've got the opportunity to do your own thing?
Well, on the doing your own thing, we are still under the oppressive jackboot of Simon Poole, who is in control of all things and whips us into shape. And actually, weirdly enough, we are attempting to cut the cloth of the podcast to a fairly strict time limit at the moment. I mean, I think if you and I had our way, we'd have no time limit at all, and we would just ramble endlessly.
The main problem is now we're not live on the radio. We can't promote our own stuff. Because as soon as we were live, I could say, I've got a book out.
And I could say, so have I.
And all that kind of stuff. And
I
it
could say,
was
hey,
live.
Simon, how are you enjoying that Dodge Brothers CD that I gave you?
That's right.
It's great.
And I could say, my new book, TikTok, is coming out on August the 18th.
Available in hardback in all good stores,
That's right.
and it's an absolute page-turner.
And, you see, and if we did that on the live radio, then you couldn't
do anything
about it. But
couldn't do anything.
Because it's a pod, he can
Cut the tape.
get his scissors and decimate it. But apart from that, we're doing exactly the same as what we ever did.
It's slightly different.
Is it?
No.
Well, I mean, one of the slight differences I wanted to talk about recently is the move to covering film-adjacent TV, as you put it. And was that kind of inspired by the lockdown, and as everyone was binging a lot of legendary box sets and whatnot? How's that all been to come into the mix?
Two things to say. Firstly, the word covering is a strong word. Dipping one's toes into the shallow waters of the pond, I think, is sort of close. I mean, obviously, during lockdown, we all ended up watching a lot more stuff at home because no one was going out. And just because of the way that the film world has changed, there is an awful lot of stuff. I know we're late to this party. There's an awful lot of stuff being done on television that seemed to us to make sense to talk about in the context of a film review show. But I can't stress this enough. We're not covering television. What we're doing is picking very specific things that we're interested in and doing them, because there are television reviewers out there who are doing the proper coalface work, and we are not attempting to do anything like what they do. So the stuff that we have talked about tends to be stuff that we have come to from the world of film, even though it's,
Yeah, it just seemed like an obvious thing to do because there are so... I remember interviewing Jodie Foster a few years ago. She was one of the first kind of Hollywood folk to realise that television and, streaming was going to be the future. And
she's really smart.
She's really smart. And there are so many actors and writers and directors who want to have their streaming series. And so it would be almost like not completing the film job if we didn't acknowledge the fact that, Tom Hiddleston and Claire Danes were doing this series on Apple TV Plus. It's sort of like it's sort of an obvious thing to do, and if we weren't doing it, it would feel as though we weren't completing our mission.
And actually, the Tom Hiddleston and Claire Danes thing was also Clio Barnard. We've reviewed every film that Clio Barnard has made, and so it seemed like an odd omission. So that's how it happened.
Yeah.
How do you feel? You've spoken there as carrying out your mission. How do you feel as film fans with this kind of change in what cinema is now, with more and more big stars wanting to do mini-series, extended series, and more films not getting cinema runs? I'm a huge fan of the cinema as a place of worship as such, but it's all changing. It really is interesting times for... I think there's as much amazing stuff being made as ever, but how it gets to us is changing drastically.
Well, if I can just go... I was having breakfast with Guillermo del Toro the other day. That was the sound of me dropping a name.
Wow.
And and Guillermo's been doing stuff with streaming services. And he said, and I kind of agreed with him, that the whole... You began that question by saying, how do you feel about it? the thing is, how you feel about it makes no difference. It's like Wednesday. You can like it or not, but it's coming round and there's nothing you can do about it. And as I've always said, simultaneous releasing has existed for years. It was called piracy, and now it's actually, sort of legitimately done. Most films that are released, or certainly like the independent films that we really love, are released in cinemas and also, for example, on Curzon Home Cinema. So you already have had the choice of whether to see something at home or in a movie theatre. And personally, I love the cinema. But if I'm going to be in a cinema watching a film, I would like it to be with a bunch of other people who are in the cinema because they chose to be in the cinema, not because that was the only place they could get to see whatever it was. I mean, we've talked before about the way in which audiences do or don't behave in cinemas. I like it when I'm in a cinema with a bunch of other people who have chosen to be there. I love the cinema. That's my choice. But I've watched loads of stuff at home as well, and that's been perfectly fine.
Mark, we've watched a lot of films together in small screening rooms, and that's, to me, possibly the ideal situation, because everyone there really wants to be there, and there's not any poor cinema etiquette.
Except I was in a preview screening once in which a guy's phone rang and he answered it. And it was like, what job are you doing? Did
you say anything?
Yeah, we had words.
I would think so.
The percentage of people in that room who would have been furious surely was through the roof, because that's exactly the kind of crowd that isn't going to have any
you'd think, wouldn't you? You'd
allowance
think.
of that.
And I sat through that screening of that movie with Sandra Bullock and Daniel Radcliffe next to a critic who was hawking up every 2 minutes. This is one of the first times I've been back in a screening room, and I was a little bit nervous, and I'm wearing a mask and all that kind of stuff. And this guy is just snotting he was just utterly disgusting.
Yeah. So under those circumstances,
yes.
Watching things at home seems like quite a nice idea.
Yeah. Pros and cons.
I mean, I'd like to now apologise for that phone call I got and for the cold I had that day. They were both unusual circumstances. So
definitely wasn't you.
Yeah, you're quite a recognisable fellow, Pip. Right, well, I'm aware that we should probably get round to one of the main reasons we're here, which is for you guys to discover your cover illustration. Obviously, you are gracing our brand new magazine, which is out, and there's an interview with the pair of you. So if you'd like to open those up, illustrated as always by Dan Evans.
It's like opening a tent.
There's real ASMR value here.
Yes.
Of the opening.
Sorry, that's a joke for the ASMR fans out there.
Yeah,
bit of a niche market.
Well, I've now got to take a sheet of. Shall I take the tissue paper off?
How hard can this be? It's like literally opening an envelope. You're like Warren Beatty at the Oscars.
Yeah, that's fine. We like it when people hammer it up.
It's all wrapped in paper.
Yes, we have actually somebody different sending them out, and they,
I'd love it if we'd sent the wrong one and it's like Moonlight La La Land moment, that you open it up and it's
Adam Buxton or
off menu.
Right, here we go.
Are we there?
Yeah.
Have you found it? There we go.
Well, I have to say, Mark is looking very self-satisfied. And
Smug is the word.
Smug is the word, and I'm looking as though I'm trying hard.
Is that in the drawing or at the
Just in general?
Mark is looking. That isn't. You are very smug.
I
in
do
that
look
photograph, and I'm very
massively smug.
And so basically, it's a stained glass window.
Yeah.
And we've got halos as though we're saints.
I'm giving you a copy of Jeremy, and I'm wearing a Pazuzu badge.
And we're both wearing togas. Toga.
We haven't done that for a long time.
And the button that's holding my toga together has got HTJI on it.
Oh, I hadn't noticed that.
There you go.
Easter egg.
There's four little Easter eggs in there. You've got the cruise boat there in the background.
And you'll notice that he might be handing me a copy of Jeremy. I am not taking it.
No, you're not.
What is my right hand is holding a microphone. What's my left hand doing?
Well, that's for the viewers to decide. That was not planned. But there you go.
Well,
I mean, I'd love to see that hanging up in the studio at some point, but who knows? We shall see. I think there's a copy there for each of you.
I look far too kind of concerned about the state of the world.
Yeah, but that's fine.
I mean,
think concerned is better than smug, right?
Yeah, I think I'm reflecting on the state of the union. That's what I'm reflecting on.
Yes.
Are you?
I think so.
That was the
That's
brief we
right.
gave the illustrator. So I think
You
he's
look
nailed
like
it.
you're staring manfully into the future, and I look like I'm going, yeah, hey, Jeremy, hey.
You look.
Hey.
You look as though you've just done a poo, and I am looking as though I'm still trying.
We had a long.
That's the exact target. I was going to say that Simon is post, screening with Coffin Person, and Mark is post hanging out with Guillermo
Del Toro.
del Toro. So
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's
he's done
why. That's why I look so smug. I have
appropriate
literally just
reactions.
come from breakfast with Guillermo del Toro.
and you've done a big poo.
exactly.
He, honestly, he ate black pudding with a fried egg on it. Yeah.
How old is
I had
he?
the vegan breakfast.
Well, you're going to live longer than him.
It's a mushroom the size of a plate.
disgusting.
This was in a fairly posh hotel. And in the middle of our conversation, another famous director came up and said, excuse me, I'm Mr. Del Toro. I am, insert name of famous director here. I'm just such a big fan of your work. And then they turned to me and I went, hello, Mark Kermode. And they went, And
Oh, there we go.
Who was it?
Insight we weren't
I
expecting.
won't, I'll tell
Bonus
you.
insight.
Okay, so I'll tell you guys. Do you want to say it? It's
Oh, okay. Oh.
just because I don't want to give him any publicity. I don't want to give him the oxygen of publicity.
No, fair enough.
Understood.
Absolutely fair. You dropped the worthy
I did.
name and kept
Yeah.
a tight grip on the unworthy
Exactly.
name, which is rightfully
Precisely so.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you very much for doing that
thank you very
illustration.
much, guys.
Thanks for
problem.
putting us on the.
It's-
Thanks for putting us on the cover. I mean, pin-up is not exactly the word I would use. I think for both of those images, but people might bow down and worship instead.
I believe they will.
I think
Yes.
so.
And,
I think this.
And rightfully
You
so.
ever think the church thing is getting slightly out of hand?
Yeah, I do now. But it is Pod Bible. I mean, they're running with it.
No,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, and of course,
Yep.
you know, as the Scientologists discovered, if you say it's a religion, tax. What's
that's
that?
That's
You know?
true. That's true.
Well,
Bible
that,
meets the church.
that magazine will have gone out to 65,000 with 65,000
Just
issues of
imagine
the
that.
Sunday Times.
65,000 people looking at that
My goodness.
on
me.
a Sunday morning.
And we have had the odd response from very religious people questioning our magazine, but mostly they were very well received, and I'm sure they will
Excellent.
be even more so with your faces on.
Well,
the
I
cover,
just hope
so-
it boosts the sales of Jeremy.
Yes,
I don't.
You haven't
100%.
seen
One to
Jeremy.
Simon
I
at
know,
least.
I don't
You
want-
haven't seen it,
I don't want to see it
but you. But how do you know if you haven't seen it?
because the music is so terrible.
But the music. Well, have either of you two
Fantastic.
seen Jeremy?
I think we have to end now.
I haven't.
No, I haven't
This is-
either.
Have you seen Jeremy?
Has anybody
No.
seen Jeremy? Wonderful.
I feel like I'm just watching it for everybody else.
Yeah, I speak on behalf of the masses.
Thank you so much,
okay.
Mark. And
Thank you for
Simon.
having us.
And,
Thank you for having us on the cover.
Yes, thank you for putting us on
No
the cover.
problem.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.